Well, happy Earth Day, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be with us on this very special call. This is something really exciting. We've never done this before, and we really want to make Earth Day a bigger deal. We want it to be a celebration, a almost annual holiday on the lines of Christmas or Hanukkah or Easter or whatever it might be that is special to different people. For us here at New Earth, our big holiday is Earth Day. We believe in everything that it stands for. We believe in the healing power and properties of this planet that we live on. And we have an extremely important interview today with Amanda Provenzano. She is a very capable and practiced voice for the planet. And so this is a really good conversation to be having on a day such as this. So just by way of introduction, Amanda has 13 years of sustainability experience and scientific education. She has a master's of science in exploring a lot of different facets of the world. She's obviously been led to so many different things in her work as part of that. And her environmental and sustainability education have really prepared her in understanding how humans negatively impact the world. But I think there's more to it than that. That's what my notes say. But more than that, it's what humans can do to positively impact the world. Just in the couple of minutes that we've had to catch up with one another, I think that is maybe the primary motivation of the work that she does with people and in these types of conversations. So years of environmental studies, teachings from wise elders that are familiar with practices of humanity that have been around for thousands of years. And the culmination of a lot of little life lessons have brought her to this nature-centered life that she now lives. And she joins us today from the magnificently beautiful island of Hawaii. That is the Big Island. Amanda, aloha.
Aloha. Nice to meet you or see you, Kevin.
It's good to meet you and see you as well. I am so grateful that you take the time to join us today because I know that this is a topic that is worthwhile for you as well. So I want to maybe just take some time and share with us sort of your perspective on a day like Earth Day. Why is this a day that people should celebrate, that they should ponder and think about humanity's impact on the Earth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a good reminder of what we should be practicing on a daily basis, and then a way for us to connect with her. So on Earth Day, today I'm definitely going to be going out hiking, going to the ocean, showing respect and reverence because in my teachings and from the many Indigenous people that I've worked with, it is always at the core of the work that we do is recognizing that we're part of a system. And we're not separate from. And so you can do that throughout your life. Earth, like I said, Earth Day is a great way of kind of remembering Earth and showing that you have reverence and respect. But also throughout your life, you can do little things like we've talked about in the past to kind of move forward and support her in a different way.
So you mentioned something that was important for us. What we wanted to talk to a lot of folks about today is small things that you can do differently. One of the things that we've talked about is small actions, big results. Because there's so many of us that share this globe. What are some of those small actions? What can we do on a daily basis? What can any one person really do?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of, so there's been a lot of study or some studies, psychological studies around the fear that global warming or climate change induces in people. And so then we feel like we have no control. And so then a lot of people will just be like, well, just forget about it. But like you're asking, what are some of the small things? I think the biggest thing is awareness, and understanding where your items are coming from. So when you go to buy something, ask yourself, why are you buying this thing? Where is this thing coming from? Could I borrow it? Or could I rent it instead of purchasing it? What is the need to actually purchase it? Because then if you can, and these are just things that throughout your, your day thinking about, you don't have to get really heavy into all the research that I do. Sometimes I'm like, all right, where did this iPhone come from? And how was this made? Which is, I could also tell you how that's done too, if you wanted to know. But I think really the important aspect of it is recognizing that the supply chain is very removed from humans, from Americans in particular. So understanding where is this product coming from, thinking about the person that's making it or the people that have made it, all the ingredients that go into it, which is funny to think about besides like food, right? Food is a great way to start learning who your farmer is or your local farmers, supporting them and building a relationship with them. Because then you also know where your food is actually coming from and what is being done to the food. So those are kind of like the base start that I would go with. Is awareness is really important.
Farmers markets used to be such a big deal in this country, and for whatever reason, maybe it's just the explosion of grocery stores, and now the explosion of online grocery stores. Don't even move. Just stay in your home and we'll bring everything to you. What are some of the benefits of a farmer's market and eating a diet that can be supplied through a farmer's market?
I mean, the biggest one, obviously, if you're thinking about your environmental impact, is most of our produce either comes from California. So if you're nowhere near California, that travels a very far way to get to you. If you aren't purchasing from farmers markets, or Mexico or South America. So your food travels a very, very long distance just to be able to get to you. So that would be impacting your environmental footprint, so your carbon emissions in particular. But there are other chemicals that are produced during transportation as well, depending on if it comes by boat or airplane. So that's a big impact of it. But then from your health perspective, so if you are purchasing something that is locally grown and organic, the soil is going to be most likely healthier than the soil that you're purchasing from something that would be grown in an industrial sense. So most of the food that we get is, and especially like pre-made things or packaged things, the ingredients that are being used in there are manufactured on an industrial size level. And so when you're purchasing local, you have a better idea of what the soil is like there. And really, soil is so important because that's where all the plants get the nutrients. And then the nutrients, we ingest those nutrients. And so that really impacts our health. Our health is super related to, or incredibly related to, what we eat and what we're drinking. But the other aspect of it, and that's kind of what I have been focusing on a lot more in the past few years, is supporting people locally. And so you're not only purchasing an item from a farmer, you're purchasing that item from your neighbor and your community member. So if we're talking about, we want to have stronger communities, we want to support each other, buying local is the best way to do it, because these are small businesses. Even though they're farmers, they're a small business, right? And most of them have been farmers for multi-generations. It is something that is at the core of who they are. And a lot of them have that knowledge and respect for the land that translates to their food.
Now, that's interesting because you kind of, in explaining that, you kind of open up the definition of sustainability to be more things than, I mean, including the people in the local economy. And, you know, the way that you support your food and where it comes from, you're supporting, you know, a lot of the people and including the soil where those things are grown. You know, that's something we consider a lot at New Earth. We're very careful in how we package products that we make. We're careful in, you know, a lot of, well, we're a harvester, so we're very careful in how we harvest as well. What are some of the impacts of just saying, okay, well, you know, blah, 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 that's too much for me to really follow, right? Because I think that's what happens is sometimes we, you know, we think about it on Earth Day, and maybe like all those other holidays we were comparing it to, it's like, okay, well, it's a day, right? What's the impact of, you know, forgetting the long-term sustainability of these things? What does the future look like without it?
I mean, I could be a doomsdayer right now with that question. Like, I mean, we see it already. I mean, you know, our water supply is being heavily polluted with microplastics, right? With the food system that you know, some of the foods that we're ingesting, people are finding like pieces of plastic in their, you know, seafood, for instance. So it isn't, I think when I was going to school many moons ago, I was the only person in undergrad that was going for environmental studies. That was 15 years ago, a little less than 15 years ago. And now this explosion of sustainability. So I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. So sustainability actually has 3 pillars. It's people, planet, and profit. So people is a huge aspect of sustainability, but it isn't marketed that way often. We believe that it's just about the environment, and the environment needs to be cleaned up. But the actions of the humans are the ones that are impacting the environment. And if you start listening to the environment more and recognizing that there's a lot of things that she's in trouble with right now. So again, I'm going to go back to water, but I can also say, you know, I can also say the garbage that we're seeing, recycling. So I was living in Seattle for the past couple of years, and they were having trouble, and I believe still are, with recycling, because China was the one that was purchasing most of their plastics, and China stopped doing that the past year, about 2 years now, right? So we have most of the United States, there are no recycling facilities that would actually take the recycling. There are recycling facilities, but then when you separate out everything, what do you do with those plastics? And what do you do with the glass and the aluminum, right? When we have, businesses have done, consistently shipped jobs over, manufacturing jobs in particular, over to China in particular, we then have no place to actually turn that plastic into some new product because China won't take it. That's like the cycle, right? Is we get the products. So we get the products and then we recycle it, and then there's a business that recycles it and then sells it to China usually, because that's where almost all the manufacturing for almost all of our goods is now done. But when you have the main source purchasing, stop purchasing from us, what do you do with all this plastic now? It goes into the landfill, right? It goes, yeah.
That might be a bit of a shock to a lot of people because they may not have realized that, you know, they're doing a good job separating things and doing their recycling, and yet it could potentially, right, be for naught.
Yeah, right. It depends on where you're located. So the interesting thing with recycling programs, it's based on your municipality. It's not based on your state or your even your county. It's really based on the people that are living local to you. So again, going back to what we were talking about is supporting your local farmers, but your local businesses, knowing the businesses that are there, and then coming together and really helping your community there. Because I think with sustainability in particular, climate change, it is a big doomsdayer type of thing where it feels like it's super uncontrollable, and we don't know what to do because, you know, oceans are warming and we're having some a lot more extreme environmental impacts and weather events. And so it feels overwhelming and unmanageable. And so a lot of people will probably feel like they just should give up. But there are things where if you start focusing on yourself, and again, going back to that awareness and having gratitude for the things that you do have. And so often when I sit down to eat, I thank the people that grew the food, the land that it grew on, and think about how many people it probably took to actually grow this food that I'm eating, so that I don't have to do that. And so that I'm able to help people in through, help people as I work as an end-of-life doula, so help people as they are transitioning, and I'm able to do all these other things because these wonderful farmers have been able to provide food for me. So I think, you know, going out, if you're in a city, and for instance, going out to a local farm, because, you know, I'm originally from Chicago, and the last time I was home, my mom and I went to a farm, and I had no idea that there was even a farm in the area.
Wow.
Besides the corn, you know, besides the acres and acres of corn, that is most of Illinois, but, you know, a local farmer that is growing diverse crops, because that's what's really important too for the soil health, is to have crop rotation, which means you are growing different types of crops based on the season, but also based on what those crops are going to be putting back into the soil in terms of nutrients and taking out of the soil. So the farmers are incredibly intelligent. Farmers that work with the land and listen to the land are incredibly intelligent people who know how to really support it and not take from it.
Wow. So the where this naturally led me is something we already talked about before we started, but I feel like our listeners will really want to hear more about it. In Hawaii, in Hilo, where you're at, there's sort of a different lifestyle, and it seems to fit this model that you're describing, where it's not just a person that has to make this decision, but it's a community, right? Do you need it? Can you borrow it? There are a lot of people that might say, well, you know, I don't want to loan this out to my neighbors, right? And maybe the thing that you need isn't going to be loaned to you. And maybe that's why everybody is so voracious on Chinese made products from Amazon, right? And these things tend to stack up on each other. Maybe that's why we're getting behind. It feels like you're recommending sort of a different, you know, thinking about how a community lives and how a community thrives. Can you describe that for us?
Yeah, I think it's really, I mean, it's what Indigenous people have been doing for thousands of years and supporting each other, is that it's taking time to get to know your neighbor so that you don't feel uncomfortable to lend a vacuum cleaner to them or whatever it is. But it is also recognizing that, like, we're not here alone, and we are surrounded by a bunch of people. And so why not have that kind of pull your Hilo, for me, definitely feels like feels similar to Chicago in the sense of, like, pull your bootstraps up, support each other, like, hey, I'm moving, can you help me move this thing? And we're not best friends, but you're human too. And it is really about, like, you know, I baked. So for instance, my landlord gave me a whole bunch of bananas, and then I baked brownies, vegan brownies with the bananas, and gave them to him and gave them to the ohana downstairs. And then the ohana gave me 5 pounds of beef from a cow that was being raised at on someone else's land. And if you don't eat meat, that is a great way to be more sustainable. But if you are a meat eater, hunting is a really much more earth-centered, Aina-centered way of consuming meat. I still only eat meat probably once every 2 weeks, I would say, and I don't eat pork. So a big thing here is boar hunting, because the boar are everywhere here.
Sure.
And it is a great source of food. And so when someone gets a boar, they will share it with almost anyone that they know, or close people that they know. So it is really about building community and building a sense of place and belonging. And that if you're in a bind, that other person is going to help you out. And I think that's what is really missing, to be honest, in a lot of places on the mainland. But you do definitely see it in smaller towns still. Like when I lived in Klamath Falls, that's where New Earth is headquartered. When I lived there, it was definitely, I think Nicole, who works for New Earth, gave me some deer or elk that she had gotten, and so it was that trading kind of system. So I think when you have the smaller communities, that's where you can get that type of support. But why not do that in Chicago or, in your neighborhood, and be the first to kind of just be reaching out to some people and be trading. And the trade economy is really alive and vibrant here for a reason. And I would say the reason is probably because the food in the grocery stores is super expensive here. But you also have incredibly expensive. I started a hummus business because the hummus here that is shipped from the mainland is so expensive. And also I wanted to use ingredients that support local farmers here. So, yeah.
That's interesting, because it's just such a different, it's almost everybody would identify that it's a healthier, more vibrant way to think and live, and even a reflection of our past. And yet someone has to be the first to step out and do it. So why not a bunch of New Earth associates that kind of already believe everything that we're talking about? Why not be the one that makes the difference and stands up and says, start with me?
Yeah.
So that's actually really interesting. Now, you spent a second, just a little bit ago, you were talking about starting your own hummus business because it's too, and by the way, I apologize on behalf of all Californians, because I know that's what's messing up the local economy, particularly real estate, or in Hawaii. But when that happens, what do the people do? Right? What happens to the economy when another sort of spoiled economy sort of comes in, right? How are the people in Hawaii able to take care of themselves and feed themselves?
Yeah, like I said, they are definitely bootstrap type of people. So a lot of the people here have like 3-4 different jobs, and yeah, so they're working a lot. Constantly, like the Ohana downstairs are really hardworking people. They have 4 kids, and the dad is always supporting them and here wanting to spend as much time as possible with them. And then also does is construction, but helps everyone. The thing that is really so I guess life-changing, the best way to say it is to see how he helps people out and also doesn't necessarily have so much to be able to be giving to other people. And I think that's what is at the core of like real Hawaii is, as the people who have been here for multi-generations, the Kanaka, the Hawaiians, that is their love for this land is, you can feel it. And I think it's really important for us to respect their culture. So coming here, you need to adapt to that and learn. And then ultimately it's like, yeah, that actually helps everyone out. So yeah, I think that's a big part
When
of
you
it.
take care of the land, like, the land takes care of you.
Oh, absolutely. Especially here, you can definitely feel, you can just feel it. They call it mana, which is like the energy of this island. And yeah, you can definitely feel that when you're supported and held properly, not held properly, but when you're held, you can definitely feel it for sure. And then it's just bountiful here. I have 3 orange trees in my backyard, and it's blooming all year round. Best oranges I've ever tasted in my life. Yeah, yeah.
And you're not looking to start an orange, farm that competes with anybody. You're just saying, hey, I have a bunch of oranges. Who wants some?
Yeah, I give it exactly. That's you'll see on the side of the road boxes of produce, and people are like, come and get some. And then, like I said, I've given oranges to friends, and they've given me eggs, or they bake stuff and they give it to me, and it is just a very heart-centered. Sounds cheesy, but a very heart-centered community where people are just out trying to help each other. Once you've like really put in the work, which when I was talking to you before, I mentioned like talking story. So really coming in with just like trying to get to know the person, and that's it. Not needing something, not wanting something. It's just getting to know the people is really important. And so when you asked before, what are people doing? I mean, a lot of the people have to move because housing becomes really unaffordable when outside money comes in to the island, and then people are, because they're not just like coming here to buy things, they're buying property, which then really makes the cost of living for the people who are local unmanageable. It's
Less
pretty.
land to grow food.
Right, right. Because a lot of Kanaka don't even have land. They can't. Yeah, yeah.
So this makes me think of, we've talked about this in the past with some of our associates, but this idea of the law of the harvest, right? That there's different seasons for things, and each one has a harvest. And one of the recommendations that you make is to buy in bulk. I think that goes along those lines. Don't buy. Yes, it's probably convenient to have a tiny little single serving of something, but why is that a bad habit? Even if it looks like it's trying to be sustainable, why is that a bad habit?
Yeah, I mean, one would be the packaging, right? Every time you buy something, and you have this plastic that you don't know, because it's always plastic, right? That'd be one thing. Is then what do you do with the plastic? It's also probably more expensive for you in the long run to buy something that is in a smaller packaging. But it also then, if you do one trip to the store, for instance, or order something online and get it in bulk to you, that's only one trip versus how many trips are you going to be taking. So that's impacting your footprint for you going to the store, or even when you order. So we all know how Amazon is where you order 4 different things and they come shipped usually in 3 different boxes or 4 different boxes. Well, all of that requires a trip to you, which is usually a plane ride, which is way more impactful on the environment than driving and ships. So overall, it was just impacting your environmental footprint.
Wow, that's powerful. Because that's another way. My parents used to shop like that, and I never thought about it until I became a little older, and I realized this is a confession. I realized there was a problem when I saw spray on butter, and I thought, this is a problem. When you have to spray on butter because you're just that lazy to get a larger thing of butter, take some off. Yeah, it's not enough for it to be cubed now. As we spray on, it's incredibly easy.
Was that even butter though? That's the thing is like,
Probably
so,
not.
right. Reading labels are really important because it is required to show the ingredients. And so if you're reading the label on anything, this is just an aside, and you can't pronounce it, I would not get it.
Don't buy it. Don't put it in your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Don't put it in your mouth because whatever is in that is going in you. And as we know with like New Earth products, it is incredibly important to have the highest quality ingredients going into you. Because if you think of it from a scientific standpoint, we are machines, not to be cold, but we are machines, right? And so you're not going to put low grade oil into your machine. You want to put high grade ingredients in there because it will fuel you for not only the rest of the day, but the rest of your life. And I think a lot of disease comes from not having those proper ingredients, but also from our environment too. What's in our water, what's in our air. So all these little things that we've talked about will help reduce your impact on the environment throughout your life too, so that you can help improve the air and water and land that you're on.
I like that a lot. I like that. You also mentioned, I know that COVID-19 has changed this a little bit, maybe in some ways, for the better, but you make recommendations about travel and just being very careful about how you travel. If you can carpool, you should. What sort of recommendations around, getting from place to place would you recommend?
I mean, if you are in a city, definitely trying to ride your bike or walk places is something that I think is probably the best form of transportation because you don't have any environmental impact besides the bike that you've bought, right? But usually your bike is probably going to last a really long time. It also becomes a hobby, and then that's good for your mental health as well. As we all know that exercise in any form is really important for us, for our mental health and physical health. But then if you are carpooling, that, right, like you said, right now it's really difficult. I also think most people are probably still not going into the office or going many places. But if you are able to, in a safe way, carpooling is a great way to build relationships. I'm in an acupuncture apprenticeship that's in Kona, and so it's an 1.5-hour drive. And I've been carpooling with someone on the Hilo side who has been in the program. It's like a continual learning program. We have a sensei who's 85 years old. And so she teaches us monthly. And so this person has been in the program for almost 19 years. And so the amount of connections that she and I have been able to have has only happened because of carpooling. So again, it goes back to building relationships and understanding she's from this island. So it is a really supportive way of being able to get integrated more into the community and respecting what the community is already doing. And then also now I have a new friend.
Yeah. Conscious of the impact on the environment and the impact that it has on you personally. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Now, you made one other recommendation that I thought was interesting, and we started to get in this before we were talking. That's why I wanted to, start recording. You mentioned that you should also take into consideration how companies treat their employees. Help me understand that. How does that fit into sustainability?
Well, I think that's the people pillar that I had mentioned before. So if you have unhappy people working for a company, is the company actually sustainable? Because humans are a part of the environment. Humans are really what we're centered around, right? That is our daily life. So I think from my personal perspective, if the company is treating their employees poorly, then, like I said, are they actually sustainable? Because just only focusing on the environment is kind of part of the reason why I have transitioned into what I'm doing is because the separation is not there. I mean, humans impact the environment, but we impact each other on a daily basis. Even if you're only at home on your electronics, you're still impacting people through social media, for instance, or emailing people. So if you have a company culture that doesn't support, parents, for instance, or single people who need to take care of their family members, or mental health. I mean, mental health is huge. And if you don't have a company that is supporting it, I question whether or not are they actually sustainable.
Yeah, almost as though they are forgetting the ends because they're so focused on the means.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Happy people
Right.
can create a happy planet.
Oh,
Unhappy
totally.
people are likely to do the opposite.
Right. For sure.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
powerful stuff. Well, I am so appreciative. I don't want to let you go without asking, like, are there other things that you would share with us, like words of advice that we haven't covered?
I think again, we have covered this, but I'm just going to keep going back to it. It's about awareness. It's about having the connection with where your products are coming from. For instance, like, I don't know, I think I might have mentioned this before, but for the fashion industry, for instance, the fashion industry, so fast fashion is kind of something that a lot of people know that term. It creates about 10% of the environmental impact of the carbon emissions just from clothing. And so recognizing, like, this thing that I'm purchasing, where is this thing going to end up? Most clothing items now only are in circulation for 6 months, and then they end up in the dump within 6 months.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So I'm saying that because, again, it is, where are you? The biggest thing, I mean, America is a consumeristic country, right? So the biggest thing that you can do is purchase items that are as 100% sustainable as you can, not 100% sustainable, but as close as you can get to being sustainable. And so really, again, going back into the mindfulness of reading labels, doing your own research, there are a couple websites that are good resources, like the Environmental Working Group. That and that's just ewg.org. That one will tell you about what organic means and what products, what type of chemicals are on different food items. But then there's also the ethicalconsumer.org, and that one is a great website too, to just research all about different items. If you have questions of, hey, I wonder if this thing is sustainable, or what does it look like for the supply chain? I think understanding that our supply chain is really, in the US, is in most countries, is very complex. It isn't you just going and buying this thing from the store, right? It's understanding what is required to create that product. So where the raw materials coming from, then where is it put together? I mean, for instance, I was researching a while ago about iPhones, and I didn't realize this, but according to the New York Times, it takes 94 production lines and 400 steps to assemble one iPhone.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
And that's
right. That's just assembly, right? Before that, obviously, all of the raw materials that go into it. So the mining processes that go into it. So just keeping those types of things. And I know that sounds really overwhelming to people, of like, well, how am I supposed to know this for all the things that I'm purchasing? And that's why I said, I go back to, do you need to buy that thing? And when you do buy that thing, purchasing intentionally, right? Like, a lot of people in the spiritual world talk about, like, intention. Use that intention for where you're purchasing things too, and who you're supporting.
Yeah, maybe you don't need the latest model of iPhone. Maybe you can skip a few generations and be okay.
Right. And then there's also like, there's people who are able to fix the iPhones too. I know iPhone has that as well, but try fixing something instead of replacing it too. Because I remember my grandma, she had a Maytag for washer and dryer for 30 years. And she was really upset that the Maytag guy couldn't fix it. And then she bought a new one and it died within 7 years. And so it's designed obsolescence is what is happening with a lot of our products. So demanding something that is actually high quality. So maybe actually purchasing something that is a little bit more expensive, but you know it's going to really last you, or you're purchasing something that is, you know, with food, purchasing something that is a little bit more expensive, but has the highest ingredients and high quality ingredients in it that are super healthy for you, because you're worth purchasing something that is going to keep you healthy.
Awesome. You've given a lot of food for a lot of the brains that are listening to this conversation. I really appreciate it, Amanda. Now, I know you have things that you're involved in right now. Why don't you share with us your websites and how people can contact you?
Yeah, my website's amandaprovenzano.com. And I support grief groups online. So we have people from all over the world who come for 6 weeks, and it's a really great container for people to talk about either someone that they've lost, which we know a lot of people have lost a lot of people this year and then last year, or also just we have different groups too that will meet around different types of grief. So grief can be from anything, not just death. And so the next one is coming up in May. I'll have it posted on my website, but it's May 20th. And then I support people one-on-one too, through all the things that we were just talking about, but really helping kind of retrain yourself to live in a different way. That's on amandaprovenzano.com too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Happy Earth Day.
Thank you.
I really
You too.
appreciate it. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, I'd love that. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.